have guests today, and Erica's joining us with kind of a story that she's sharing. I posted on Instagram. Would anybody like to share? And does anybody have, something they'd like to share about their journey or any question that they'd like to ask? And Erica had some great insight, and so I was really excited to have her on the show to explore that insight. So, Erica, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Erica. My husband and I have a 3-year-old daughter, and I actually have been in the field working with children and families for 15 years prior to becoming a mom. And you would think that that would be a little bit of a smooth transition into motherhood, and it rocked my world and
Yeah,
was way more challenging than I imagined.
yeah. Yeah, I think I worked in public school for 13 years as a teacher and a counselor, and I don't think one moment of that helped me be a mom.
I often wonder if I almost got like burned out,
Yeah.
with children to the point where by the time my daughter came in my life, I was like, I'm already exhausted.
Yeah, me too. I think I was burnt out, but at the same time, I thought I knew so much about kids. I thought I knew so much about child development. I thought I knew about ages and stages. I thought I knew about attachment. I thought I knew all these things and somehow falsely talked myself into the fact that I thought I would be a good parent.
Yeah, 100%. It was like it almost caught me off guard.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was why I was reacting so negatively to the experience.
Yeah. So tell me about your experience early on. What was it like and what did you feel and go through?
Yeah, so even my journey to motherhood was long and intense. We adopted our daughter, and the adoption journey was long, and we had just a lot of traumatic experiences in that journey by the time our daughter came to us. Um, but then, of course, she was just like this perfect, healthy, incredible baby. And everyone waited so long for her to be in our family that it just was euphoric, for a few months until it wasn't anymore. And, like, it really settled in just how hard parenthood is, and,
Mhm.
but I will say, I think an extra layer to being an adoptive parent is this pressure that you put on yourself to be a perfect parent because we have an open adoption with her birth family, and so we know, like, what they were looking for and what they were hoping for her future, and you wanna be all of that plus more,
Yeah.
and it's not that they imagine that we would be perfect parents, obviously, that's unrealistic, but in my head, that was, like, my standard that I created for myself.
Yeah, and I think society doesn't do us any favors in that realm either. Society says to us, you should know how to you should know how to parent, and B, you should be really good at it just because you're a parent. And
Yeah,
so they put that pressure on you, like you should have the well-behaved kid and they shouldn't be crying in public and they should be following the rules and doing all these things, and then you blame yourself when they don't.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah.
So when things got bad, what started happening in your home?
My fuse was so short.
Yeah.
I I think I just had a lot going on aside from motherhood. Health situations, work situations. My husband and I own our own business. So it's just a lot simultaneously happening while we're trying to balance um, a baby during COVID and, balancing a new routine and a new schedule. And um, yeah, I just found myself very overwhelmed, very dysregulated. I was just snapping. And it just like,
Yeah.
I think of it like a pathway in my brain that just I just kept going to
Mhm.
because that's what I started to know and was comfortable with. So it was like I was reacting like that quicker and quicker the more that I did it, where
Yeah.
I just found myself just like the tiniest little thing would just like I'd have a big blow up, or a
Yeah.
big meltdown. And I was so disappointed in myself. because
What
I
was
knew
your
better.
Yeah, of course. We don't wanna get mad at our kids. What was your family like? Did your one of your parents have a short fuse, or was there a lot of turmoil growing up?
I don't remember a lot of turmoil growing up as far as like, I don't have strong specific memories of my parents like yelling at me, but I can tell you that it probably wasn't as calm as I would like to see my household today,
Mhm.
or that a lot of my friends are trying to create for their household, like that calmer
Yeah.
atmosphere.
Were you expected to be good?
I am a perfectionist, like type A.
Me too.
So if it wasn't my parents, it was just me on
Mm,
myself. Like,
right.
and that was another thing with motherhood that I had to really come to terms with is I don't have control over most situations day to day, and I cannot have the day go perfect.
No.
That's just unrealistic.
No, and I think that's what us perfectionists. Have you read my book?
No, I want to though.
It's all about that. But that's what us perfectionists start to really lose it every moment that isn't perfect, right? Then we're like, "What? No, I have to control you into behaving, into doing what I need you to do so that I can have this perfect thing in my head." Yeah,
Yeah,
I
losing
get
that
that.
control was scary.
Mhm.
So I was trying to like rein it in anywhere I could.
Yeah. So, was there a certain moment that you came to, like, a realization around your own dysregulation?
A year ago, like today or this month, March, we took a month-long vacation to Florida and we drove. And we did this drive that was our third long 2-day drive with our daughter, and it was never great. It was hard, um, but it really was at like the worst coming home from our trip last year. And I just found myself in such a desperate place. I saw that a local resource was having parent classes, and I
Mm,
like jumped on it. And ironically, got hired by this resource, and I now facilitate this parent class
great.
to other parents. So it was a combination of getting myself in these resources and coming to
Mhm.
terms with things that I needed to work on in therapy and long conversations with my husband and just like brutally honest, vulnerable conversations that I would have never had with anyone else.
Yeah. What did you decide needed to change?
I definitely need to be way more aware of like when I am feeling dysregulated or overstimulated and be like proactive with that. Like either just try to do something that's going to help me feel better
Mhm.
or just communicate with my husband like, hey,
Your
today's
turn.
not a good day. It's, yep, I'm going to have to like step away for a little bit.
Tagging out, yeah, that's so smart to do that. I know, and I don't know if you've listened to any of the podcasts where I talk about listening partnerships.
I want to. I have seen those pop up. Yeah.
Yeah, they're great. I just say it for anybody listening and for yourself too. Like if you're part of the peace and parenting community or you're part of hand in hand parenting community, we try to pair you up with a listening partner, meaning a person who just listens to you. It's like therapy, but almost even better because the person doesn't give you any advice. They just listen to you have your tantrum, talk about your childhood, get your feelings out. And we encourage people to do it once a week. And it really is a place to feel like calmer because
Yeah.
you're taking on all these feelings, right? You're the feelings of being a mom, the feelings from your own child, the feelings of the pressure of work. And if you don't have a good outlet, it does make your fuse really short. And so I'd like to get you a listening partner. That would be amazing.
That
It's
would be
amazing for
amazing.
anyone. Yeah, yeah, they're really good. We'll get you one, but I think,
Yeah.
every person should have one. Um, the only problem is you have to be deeply into this idea of no punishments and rewards and, like, everyone's kind of on the same page around it, but it's an incredible place, so
Yeah.
let's do that for you.
And it's not about like necessarily giving advice to others, you're just listening.
No advice, in fact, we tell you not to, and you're
Hmm.
not their friend, you're not having a chit chat, you're not talking about your kid went to baseball today, like, you're just listening.
Yeah, even within this last year, I was so desperate to find someone, like anyone that would, besides my husband. And, therapy was like what I was trying to figure out. And still to this day, I cannot, it's just been like roadblock after roadblock with like therapist. So
Yeah.
that was, so I was like, I need to do this on my own. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
actually,
many
I connected with your podcast and immediately, like, just it clicked with me. Something about refocusing my perspective on the connection with my daughter over anything. Like that should be the most important thing in my life. And it wasn't,
right.
I wasn't prioritizing my relationship with her.
Yeah, I felt the same way for years. But when it clicks like that, when you could be like, oh my gosh, I'm focusing on being a perfectionist, I'm focused on behavior, I'm focusing on getting things done, I'm focusing on all these things. And when you can shift that focus, it's like almost enough to just shift the ethos in your house.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so good. So you made the change a year ago. How do you feel now?
I'm so much happier and confident like in my relationship with her cuz I was just like every day, every time I had my little mom tantrum or meltdown or whatever you want to call it, I would like hold that guilt that whole day
Yeah.
and just kept worrying that things were never going to get better. That
Mhm.
I was just going to have a blow up like every day.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, I'm obviously we have our moments still. The blowups are not as big between her and I. Um, I should add, I'm a Scorpio and she's a Scorpio, and so we're very strong-willed people.
Pia's a Scorpio. My Pia is a Scorpio. She's strong too. Quiet and
S-
strong.
So, like having a daughter that her birthday's 3 days before mine, like we're so similar. Um, So we do butt heads, and she's only 3, but like she communicates really clearly what she needs.
Yeah.
Um, it's so yeah, so we our relationship is so much more like just nurturing and loving. And I put her to bed every night, and if we did have a bad day, we talk about it, and I apologize, if I felt like I was too snappy that day, and we talk through it and it like repairs so that we can start fresh the next day.
Yeah. That's so good. And so now looking back on it, because I know in our messages you talked about the guilt. Tell me about the guilt. What does it feel like?
I just thinking back to a year ago on that vacation, I felt
Mm,
like I was in such a bad mood with everyone that I practically ruined our vacation. And that's the guilt that I feel is if I just was in a better headspace or had a better perspective of how amazing it is that we get to be on vacation for a whole month together versus focusing on all the challenging things that were happening, we would have just had like a better memory of it.
But I think too, Erica, isn't that life and being human? Isn't that part of the human experience? And don't you think your husband and your daughter are going to put you guys in those kind of spaces at some point too?
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard.
It's hard when you're a perfectionist like us.
Uh-huh, because I don't wanna make those mistakes. I keep track of them.
Well, that's the thing too, and let's go there. I think that's a really good conversation. It's like if we are so disallowing of mistakes for ourselves, also are we disallowing other people to make mistakes, or are we keeping track over there too? And is it a place where we can just say, can we let go of mistakes being bad?
Yeah, that's huge because I don't want my daughter to think that every time she makes a mistake that I'm keeping track of that, or my
Yeah,
husband.
right. And it's like if we are doing it to ourselves, we might not consciously be doing it elsewhere, but it's in there because it's part of our fiber, it's part of our judgment, it's part of our whatever. Listen, I'm no better. But I have gotten better. I've been doing this for 13 years though, so let's hope I got better. If I didn't, then I need to find a new job. But I think that's the thing. Like, can we say mistakes they're good? They're places where look what happened, look what came out of your mistake.
Yeah, this, like, raw, intimate relationship. My daughter or my husband brought that up. He was like, "Do you think our relationship with all of us would be as like intimate as it is if we didn't have those rough time periods. And I was like, the perfectionist in me is like, I don't know, maybe it'd be better. But no, he's probably onto something with that.
Yeah, I think he is, and, you're gonna have moments like that again.
Oh, yeah,
And so
yeah.
we can't beat ourselves up because I think for me, what I used to do is I would beat myself up and then I would go to shame.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would try to be even a more perfect perfectionist in order to avoid the shame. So then I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be the perfect connected parent. Like, I'm gonna do everything right. I'm never gonna mess up. I'm going to do special time and empathy and this and that and just go deep, deep into it." And still, even in those early days when I messed up, I beat myself up. And then when I went to the shame, it led me to be dysregulated because I was in such a bad emotional state that even being connected to my kids, I was still in that shame loop.
Yeah, I'm right there.
Yeah. I think you're not the only one. I know there's so many of us who operate that way. And I wonder too, is the shame from this idea from I know for me, from my childhood, it was like I was expected to be good. It wasn't like I was totally, it wasn't explicit, but I was expected to be good and I was given accolades when I was good. And so somewhere in me when I'm bad, I beat myself up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely something to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a beautiful thing that you had a bad trip.
It definitely took me to my breaking point.
Good.
Yeah.
That's where you needed to be.
Yeah, it was a wake up call for sure.
Yeah. And no need to beat ourselves up around that because
And
you
we're
made it you turned what do they say? You made lemonade out of lemons?
lemons, yep.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to take basically the same trip in a couple weeks. Not as long. We learned our lesson with that. And so now I'm excited with the opportunity to hit like redo. Let's make
Yeah.
this one better.
Or what if it isn't?
Yeah, we might have some rough moments.
Yeah, and then what if it's what if you have terrible moments that are really, really hard and are they that terrible? Or are they just part of life?
Right. Yeah. I
Readjusting our
tend
expectations.
I tend to freak out about the things that aren't that big of a deal.
Yeah, which things?
Like this, if the sleep is bad, like when we switch resorts, like of course it is. She's gonna have a rough transition. But I'm like in my head, like, oh no, we all need to get sleep so we can go to Disney the next morning. And I get like all worked up.
In your head. And
Hmm.
then we get tight, right? And then we get controlling. Like, "You have to go to sleep. It's time. It's right now. It's 8 o'clock. It's you can't be up," and then we get into that place. Yeah, I think having 0 expectations in parenting is, like, one of the best pieces of advice we can give ourselves.
Yeah, because then you'll just be pleasantly surprised
That's exactly
when it
right.
goes well.
And then they never sleep well when they're somewhere else. That's just it's hard when they're little. Even when they're big, it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else? What do you say to people who are feeling frustrated or have a short fuse and, maybe are teetering on this traditional parenting and what do you say to them? What's your advice?
Self care is huge.
Yeah.
Trying to recognize when you're on that trajectory before it's like you hit your breaking point.
Yeah.
Just being like super self aware and asking for help. Like, you'd be surprised how many of your friends, even though they're moms as well, would be willing to like hang out with your kid for a couple hours while you go grocery shopping by yourself. I had to learn,
Yeah.
like, oh, I can ask. We have great, we have a great support system here, but um, I just realized I could ask for more help.
Yeah. And people like to do it and then you get to reciprocate and then that's such a beautiful thing too. Yeah.
Yeah.
We always had this little girl across the street. She was not always, but when the kids were little, she was 12 and she would come over and for $10, she would stay for 2 hours and play with the kids.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I took naps sometimes. I made dinner sometimes. I was in the house, but she played with them. And so for $10, I was like, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. So
Yeah.
I
You just
always
reminded
encourage.
me, we had a mama helper when our
Yeah.
daughter was still home with us, and I we haven't had her come over in a while. Maybe I should.
Yes, you should. Once a week. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
Erica, thank you for sharing your journey and your story, and thank you for listening to the podcast. I so do appreciate it. It is a lovely little place, I think, for information for people.
Oh, yeah, it's been huge for me.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us on the Peace and Parenting podcast. I really appreciate you being here, and I will catch up with you guys next time.